Right now, as you sit there listening, your brain is actively lying to you, fabricating events that never happened and erasing details you swore you would never forget. In 1974, a group of researchers showed subjects a film of a car crash and asked a simple question that completely shattered the reliability of human memory forever. They didn't ask what happened. Instead, they asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other. Just changing that single word, from hit to smashed, tricked people into remembering broken glass that was never actually there. But that wasn't even the worst part. The human mind isn't a recording device, it's a fiction factory, constantly rewriting your past to protect your fragile ego from the horrifying truths of your own existence. Every single time you recall a memory, you aren't opening a video file. You're opening a document, editing it with your current emotions, biases, and fears, and then saving a completely corrupted version over the original. Think about your childhood. That terrifying night you fell down the stairs, or that heartwarming birthday party your parents threw you. Are you sure it happened the way you see it in your head, or did someone plant that story there years ago through casual mentions and old photographs? Psychological experiments have proven that with just a few leading questions and suggestive hints, you can convince a perfectly healthy adult that they committed a serious crime in their youth, complete with vivid, emotional details of an event that is 100% a fabrication. And then something even more disturbing happened when scientists started looking at how the brain processes trauma. They found that the mind will literally block out entire decades of abuse, replacing them with peaceful, mundane fantasies just to keep you from losing your absolute mind. But the cracks in the illusion always show if you know where to look. Have you ever walked into a room and felt an overwhelming sense of dread, like you've lived that exact horrific moment before, yet your logical brain screams that it's impossible? That's not a glitch in the matrix. That's your subconscious recognizing a pattern of danger that your conscious self refused to accept the first time around. Why do we cling so desperately to these manufactured truths? Is it possible that absolute reality is simply too dark for the human psyche to endure without shattering? Consider the concept of confabulation, a psychological phenomenon where people generate completely false memories without any intention to deceive. They aren't lying to you. They genuinely believe their delusions are absolute facts. Their brains have suffered a microscopic failure, and rather than leaving a terrifying blank space in their consciousness, the brain instantly improvises a lie, coats it in absolute certainty, and serves it up as the truth. Now, let that sink in for a moment. If your brain is willing to invent entirely fake histories on the fly just to avoid a minor cognitive void, what else is it hiding from you right now? What foundational memories holding your entire identity together are actually nothing more than elaborate coping mechanisms designed to keep you sane? Think about your closest friends, your family, your most defining life achievements. How much of that narrative is real history, and how much is just a comforting bedtime story your neurons made up to help you fall asleep at night? But the rabbit hole goes much deeper than just altered memories. The architecture of your brain is wired for paranoia and survival, constantly scanning your environment for threats that no longer exist in the modern world. You feel a sudden spike of anxiety while walking down an empty hallway at night, and your heart races as adrenaline floods your bloodstream. Why? Because thousands of years ago, your ancestors who ignored that subtle rustling in the bushes ended up as predator food. You are the paranoid descendant of the survivors, carrying a brain that is literally hardwired to expect catastrophe around every single corner. And yet, modern society tells you to calm down, to ignore those instincts, to trust that everything is safe. But your subconscious knows better. It knows that the thin veneer of civilization is just a social construct holding back raw, unfiltered chaos. And then something even more unsettling occurs when we examine the concept of split-brain patients, individuals who have had the corpus callosum severed, cutting the communication bridge between the left and right hemispheres of their brain. Suddenly, you are no longer dealing with one unified consciousness. You are looking at two independent entities trapped inside a single skull, each with their own desires, beliefs, and interpretations of reality. When researchers flash an instruction to the silent right hemisphere, the patient's left hand might suddenly start buttoning a shirt or trying to open a door. When asked why they are doing it, the talkative left hemisphere doesn't say "I don't know." Instead, it instantly invents a completely logical, confident excuse for an action it had no part in initiating. The left brain is an expert PR agent, spinning comforting fairy tales to explain away the bizarre, alien impulses of the rest of your nervous system. If your brain is capable of dividing itself into separate conscious agents that lie to each other, are you really the unified captain of your own ship, or are you just a helpless passenger trapped in the back seat while multiple internal drivers fight for control of the steering wheel? Consider the experiments involving subliminal messaging and unconscious bias. You make choices every single day, believing you are exercising free will, when in reality, your decisions were made by your subconscious up to 10 full seconds before you ever became consciously aware of them. Your brain has already decided whether you'll say yes or no, whether you'll fight or flee, whether you'll love or hate, long before the thought ever bubbles up to the surface of your awareness. You are essentially living in the past of your own mind, reacting to decisions that were already made for you in the dark engine room of your psyche. Why does the brain hide this delay from us? Because if you truly realized that you are not the author of your own actions, the illusion of control would vanish, and the psychological fallout would be catastrophic. We need to believe we are in control. We need the comforting lie of free will to keep us moving forward through the existential dread of daily life. But what happens when that illusion starts to crack under extreme psychological pressure? People often report hearing whispers in empty rooms, seeing fleeting shadows darting just out of the corner of their vision, or feeling an ice-cold breath on the back of their neck when no one is there. Mainstream science quickly dismisses these as auditory or visual hallucinations, misfiring neurons, or mere tricks of the tired eye. But is that always the case, or is the brain occasionally dropping its heavy security filters, letting you catch a terrifying glimpse of something that was always there, hiding just beneath the thin membrane of ordinary perception? Why do humans across every culture and every era of history independently invent the exact same nightmares, monsters, and shadowy figures lurking in the dark? Is it possible that these aren't just random products of a hyperactive imagination, but rather deeply encoded evolutionary warnings etched permanently into our genetic code? Think about the uncanny valley, that profound, gut-wrenching feeling of revulsion you experience when you look at a robot or a mannequin that looks almost human, but not quite right. Why does your nervous system flood with panic at the sight of something that can't possibly hurt you? Because throughout human history, the only things that looked like humans but acted lifeless or unnatural were corpses carrying deadly diseases or predators mimicking your own kind to lure you into a trap. Your ancient ancestors learned to fear that specific brand of wrongness, and that fear was successfully passed down through generations, waiting silently in your DNA until the moment you stare too long into the dead eyes of an ultra-realistic synthetic face. It's a chilling reminder that your fears do not belong entirely to you, you are merely renting them from ancestors who paid for them in blood and terror. And as we continue to push the boundaries of artificial intelligence and virtual reality, we are actively creating new anomalies that will trigger ancient survival mechanisms we barely understand. What happens to the human psyche when we surround ourselves with digital ghosts and synthetic minds that look and sound just like us, yet possess no soul, no empathy, and no biological limits? Are we slowly breeding a new kind of collective madness, rewriting our psychological makeup in ways that will take evolutionary science centuries to unravel? The more we study the hidden machinery of the human mind, the clearer it becomes that we are strangers in our own bodies, navigating a simulated reality constructed by a brain that prioritizes survival over truth every single time. And that leaves us with a deeply disturbing realization: if your memory is a fabrication, your choices are pre-recorded, and your fears are inherited, then who exactly is the one sitting behind your eyes, listening to these words right now? Why did the most extreme psychological experiment conducted in 1998 on sensory deprivation reveal that human subjects began losing their grip on reality in under 20 minutes, and what did the silent audio logs from that experiment actually record before they were permanently sealed by the government?